Okay, I need you to state your name for me, for record purposes.
Larissa Hale.
And also, I need your consent saying that it's okay for me to use this footage towards the project. It's not going to be used in any type of form that's going to be, work against you or anything like that.
It's cool.
Okay. Question number one: why do some artists who come out in the music scene one way end up evolving or changing into a whole nother way?
I think it has a lot to do with maybe the record company and what their vision of the artist may be, maybe the type of music that the artist is in. They want them to kind of stay in that style or the culture of that genre of music that they're probably doing. Maybe it has a lot to do with growth. Um, we all grow, we all evolve, so we may, you know, feel a certain way or be in a certain mode, but as we grow, um, it changes.
So would that kind of explain the evolution of an artist in the sense how, for example, like Rihanna, how she first came as the image of a good girl and now she's
The image
the
of a bad girl.
yeah the Rihanna that we know as of now.
Well, that's evolving as well. You know, as women, period, we like to tap into our different emotions. We like to, tap into our different sexualities, like exploring ourselves. And maybe at the age that she was trying to uphold that image. But as you grow as an artist and you're out there and you're saying that's the whole thing about artistry is being able to express yourself, going to that place where most the average person would be just not so open to go there. Artists have a certain vulnerability, but is looked at as encouraging, as being someone that has a lot of courage and bravery to be able to do something, but it takes vulnerabilities for that. And even if you look at Madonna, truly an example of evolution of how she started to where she is now. Your legends, you can tell. Our legends, Tina Turner, Madonna, Janet Jackson, Diana Ross, all these people, watching their evolution from the time they started to where they are now.
So speaking of legends and those who reached that legendary status, who would you consider of the younger generation to be? Well, I won't quite say a legend on the same plateau as like Madonna and them, but in their own right would be considered a legend because of their evolutional form. If you can name some.
Yeah. Um. Well, like you said, Rihanna, maybe even Beyonce, from where she started to where she is now. Um, I think Beyonce is a good example. I'm trying to think. Um, that's all I can think of in this moment. But someone like Beyonce, who has come a long way to be so young, but she started out at a very young age, childhood, until now. Um, to me, who I can think of right now, she would be an example of that.
Okay. Which we just answered the question by can you identify some artists we feel ever will
Hmm.
have evolved.
In our modern time, yeah.
Do you feel like music will evolve in the next generation? Because as they say, music doesn't change; it just changes forms or something on those lines. So,
Music will always evolve, especially as long as there's sampling and as long as there's people,
quote
um,
unquote sample.
yeah, quote unquote sampling. But there are artists that are very just creative on their own that just don't need to sample other people's music to be creative. Music will never change. I may feel like a new genre may evolve in time because if we look at all the genres that we have now, like hip hop, R&B, soul, all those really, especially like hip hop and pop, you know, spawn from like jazz, um, blues being the root music, blues and African music, well, I should say African, um, and gospel kind of being the roots and the foundation of where music started, and then people taking liking certain parts maybe of the African uh, drums and the music and the gospel, taking a little form of that in that song and creating their own genre and creating a song just out of that little piece that they like. It's almost kind of like with hip hop. A lot of hip hop artists, the DJs taking samples of music. They'll take a certain line in a song and take that and either loop it or add some drums to it. You know, then you got your hip hop music. So everybody's it's kind of taking pieces of the different genres and creating it their own genre. So I think it will never not end with just 12 scales. How much you can create with just 12 scales.
Okay. A big trend lately is controversy. Um, but why is controversy taking the lead as a trend? And do you think it's part of an artist's evolutionary standard now? Because it seems like most artists who are quote unquote at the highest point of their career end up in some type of controversy.
Well, it comes with the media. Media is the only one that can fuel such that, if something that happens like that, we would never know unless some type of media person was there to be told and to air it. So, and like Biggie said, more money, more problems. That is true. But it's really about the media. It has nothing to do with the artist. I mean, yeah, it's the artist, but just like the rest of us, they're still human, except unlike us, they got a camera or a photographer or some type of journalist or somebody following them around, watching their every move, waiting for them to do something, which is inevitable. And artists do their best to escape that, but the higher you go, the more they're gonna try to find dirt on you. So it really is the media, like with the Biggie and Tupac East Coast West Coast thing. The East Coast West Coast beef was developed by um, the media, basically. Just one little altercation or maybe a disagreement between two men from two different sides of the country. You know, the media tacks on okay, East Coast against West Coast when it wasn't even that serious. So it's the media's use of what they have and changing into propaganda is really the blame.
So could you say that maybe another trend would be just beef in general between certain artists? Like the most recent one is Chris Brown and this rapper guy named Taylor the Creator, if I'm not
Hmm.
mistaken.
I know that one.
And there's the one before that, which is Nicki Minaj and Lil
Little Kim.
Kim. So could you think? Well, you think that may be another trend? Because like back then it was beef, but it was a lot less of it. I think the most major beef back then was Tupac and Biggie, and like nowadays it seems like I guess to be somebody famous you have to have beef with somebody. So
Well, I mean, there's different aspects of beef. Like 50 Cent, he got famous because he, you know, had a little, a little rhyme, a little battle about, I think it was KRS-One, just in one of his songs, and KRS-One heard that, went from there, and no, it wasn't KRS-One. It was either KRS-One or it was Jay Z. It was Jay Z, I think it was, because um, in retaliation, Jay Z came out and said, I'm all about a dollar. Who the is 50 Cent, So, but when Jay Z said, who is 50 Cent, everybody knew then, well, who's this 50 Cent guy? So, I mean, it worked in his favor, but he did that purposefully. Some of the things like Little Kim and Nicki Minaj, Little Kim's whole thing is that, you're gonna try to be like me, act like me, pay me my respects. And it basically now just kind of like, the younger cats that are around today biting off a lot of styles and not paying homage to kind of the person that started it. So that's kind of like a Little Kim's issue. But unlike somebody like Madonna, who really, don't really care about how what Lady Gaga is doing. Because if you look at Lady Gaga is nothing but a modern, really Madonna like that, the edgier Madonna. But Madonna looks at it like, okay, I opened this door for us to be expressive like this, so okay, carry on. Unlike Little Kim and Nicki Minaj, who's maybe it's more of like Little Kim's thing is like, don't say this is original. We kind of know where you got your style from. Just acknowledge that. So these are different type of beefs.
Just,
So
I guess, part of the evolutionary growth.
I mean, it's just the life of the music industry. I mean, the music industry is largely business, so you have to market yourself, and if you're on top, you're the one with the money, and once you get on the top, you got people coming for you, trying to imitate you, trying to take things from you. So I mean, the music industry is way more ruthless than you got these other business around here, which people don't really know about. There's these rules in the music business, but they're like kind of go. It's like I don't. Where's the manual about how some things are operated within the music business? It's kind of like who came up with these rules? It's like business and street coming together. That's really what the music business is.
So, which basically saying you need to have not just common sense, but book sense and street sense all in one.
Yeah, you gotta have business sense because the people from the street, if you know how people operate in the street, it's about survival, go get it, how you can get it. So you gotta be clever in it. But if you have the understanding of the business side, if you got both, somebody like Diddy, he has a lot of the industry knowledge. So maybe like a Suge Knight or somebody got more of uh, the street side, but got some money. So if you look at those two guys and how they ran their business, you can see which one was more the influence, the street or the actual understanding of business. So somebody that you can get that comes together, almost kind of like a Russell Simmons, kind of is an example of the two coming together because you know he, he grew up in the hood, but has a lot of business savvy. So I feel like he's a good example of the two coming together and working as one. When you have both that knowledge, you can it'll be beneficial because if you don't, you can get eaten up so many kind of ways.
Um, Another trend is skin. For some reason, it seems that sex sells more. So why does it seem like artists are having to, well, quote unquote, it's mainly more female artists seem to have to show more skin than in the past. Like in the past, they were pretty dressed up.
Hmm.
Like for example, Diana Ross, she had on, pretty gowns and dresses like that. She didn't show a lot of skin compared to like the most recent, like Rihanna and Carrie Hilson, where the more vital areas is covered. So why does it seem like skin is part of their evolution and the trend now?
Well, like you just said, sex sells. So now it's about how much of your body can be exposed without showing everything. It's the whole thing about strip tease or just the tease. But if you, and it's more so, it's about the visual effect more so than what you sound like. Because, if you look back at the mid 90s, you know, female groups, TLC, SWV, um, all those types of groups, they had their little taboo moments, but for the most part, in the mid '90s, artists like female artists, they were a little bit more covered than they are now.
Except for Salt and Pepper,
Yeah, maybe
that
that's kind of where maybe we could see the trend and the evolution of things beginning to become more sexually expressive through um, body and trying to think, what was the question on it again?
basically just why they're showing more skin.
Oh, but yeah, and that's the other thing too. Sex sells, like you just said. I mean, that's what is. I mean, there are a lot of guys in videos, but their whole thing is they're just more their shirt off. If they got muscles, they gonna have their shirt off. If they don't really have no muscles, they gonna keep their clothes on. So I feel like maybe it's gonna be the same thing with women, but there's that push to be sexy. You have to be more. You got to be sexy. You got to be able to do all these things in addition to being able to sing. Um, so, like I said, that has a lot to do with marketing, the record companies and their visions. But we're more so talking about these questions are more geared toward pop culture. in pop culture you have all this, but if you go in like, maybe jazz, it's not really about that. Jazz is really about how you play. Like you have people that, I mean, to me, jazz is one of the genres that you can have a long career. Like you have people like Mary McPartland, who's a piano player, who's like in her 90s still playing. Um, you can have, Houston Person, who's like 75 years old, saxophone player, still jamming, still getting down, still playing, still moving around. Steve Turay, a trombonist, 64. These cool cats out here that are still, as long as you can play, you gonna be around. But like pop culture, you know,
Once you gain that weight.
exactly. Once you like maybe 25, it's almost like the modeling industry, modeling, pop culture, anything that has to do with the youth and stuff. Once you kind of gotten out of their youth realm, there's no use for you anymore. So, really, that sexual identity, all that kind of stuff, is spawned in the pop. And you got rock, but yeah.
So could that be considered back with evolution, or what should you? Well, would you feel like the older you get and the more you evolve, should your image change to fit your evolutional state? Like for example, if you're in your 40s, even if you have a very nice body, do you think you should be more wardrobe or you know?
I think you should just do whatever you feel. I mean, as a woman, if we're, just specifically dealing with women, as women get older, um, they, learn themselves and they start to figure out, they in themselves see what is sexy. Instead of someone telling them this is how they should be sexy, the woman herself sees her own sexuality and explores that and goes with that. And if people can't accept it, then I'm sorry. But if that, like they always say, if my fans have been with me all this time, then this me evolving, you know, you're gonna be right there. Madonna, Janet Jackson, so
Because Janet, she's been in the game for a very long time,
since she was a teenager. I mean,
and her body has gone from this to this to this to this and this, and it seems like if you have that stay power, that stand, you can pass the test of time without having a lot of backlash from it.
just staying true to yourself. Those that have stayed true to themselves have survived, have had that longevity in the career. Madonna, very controversial, but she stuck to who she was. Janet had her controversial moments, but she's always stuck to who she was. They kept up with the times, but they also set the time as well. So it's really about staying true to yourself and always not being afraid to reinvent yourself, but still, reinventing. You got to look inside yourself. You got to know who you are. You got to know your spirit. You got to know how you feel. You got to know how you see yourself. It's good how people see you, but it's how you see yourself and not being afraid to express that side of you. That's why people love artists, because we are not afraid to express ourselves.
So, for example, an artist who does not evolve, how do you think it? Well, how do you feel about their career? Like, for example, I'm trying to think of an artist who hasn't changed since they came out, but they're still on top of.
You said that has not changed.
Well, they've evolved, but to the sense where I gotta put it, more like a musical evolution, but they still represent the same being. Like they haven't changed their identity. Like for example, Rihanna came out as a good girl. Now she's just gone bad on the spectrum. Even though she's still a great artist, she's evolved countless times within just a few years. But like some artists who've come and just stuck to that one, and for example, Jill Scott,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
well, she's lost a lot of weight recently, but I mean, she's still the same as when she first came out. Her music has changed, but she's still the same humble Jill Scott.
Mhm.
So, how do you feel like artists like that have a standing compared to the ever so evolving artists of today?
It's about recognizing who you are from the jump. Like sometimes it takes people a long time to evolve into who they are. Some people already know who they are right from the jump, and somebody like a Jill Scott, a Erica Badu, India.Arie, your underground, almost like your neo soul artists, your Lauren Hills. These are women that you know who they are, and they knew who they were at a young age, at a younger time. So that's where they are. They know that's where they belong. I mean, that's where they fit. That's what they know, and that's what they're going to work with and stay in that area. I mean, they probably will feel like growing as time goes on, where they are growing a little bit more. But if you already know who you are, you just do that at your best. If you know what you can do, you're gonna if you do that to the best of your ability and you continue to do that, you will be great. So that's where the evolution may take a little longer to develop because it's just been there all that time
Be able to reach that legendary status to
at a
where.
very young age. But it takes it takes understanding who you are, and once you do recognize that, perfect it, sharpen it, grow knowledge in it, and just do what you know, and that can keep you that quiet under the radar kind of just doing what you do, and it looks like you're still there, but they are growing. It may not be that physical. They're it's theirs is growing almost on another level. It could be physical, it could be musically, vocally, whatever. But they are already kind of like at this point, and they've been really good at that even when they just first started. So
Okay. Now let's talk about, because we've talked about a lot of female artists that has evolved. There are some male artists that has evolved. Who comes to mind when someone says male artist?
has developed. Trying to think.
Even some in the past.
Um, there's so many. Where do I want to begin? I mean, just any artist that was out back in the day that still is around today. You can definitely look at their evolution. Um,
I'll give you an example. Michael Jackson. That's one of the biggest evolutionary male figures there is.
mhm.
But his influence, do you feel like it's affecting the newer males, like setting a certain standard? For example, Chris Brown. Chris Brown looked up, to Michael.
Like Chris Brown, Usher, and all of them, but it's about what they're taking from Michael. Sometimes they may just take his moves. They may take his song, his lyrics, but a lot of I feel like the Ushers and the Chris Browns are more so taking his moves, like his dance moves, and just incorporating their style of music. Because not necessarily lyrically are they like Michael because of what Michael spoke about versus what an Usher and Chris Brown speak about. Michael was about love and healing the world, and his songs were really about loving human beings. Chris Brown and Usher, it's not necessarily about that. It's just kind of like a lustful kind of in love, talking about what they want to do or how to spend time with this person. It's not about it's about that. So, but how they just took a part of him is like going back to jazz and having how you have hip hop and you have pop, you know, forming from taking maybe an aspect of this jazz piece and creating a whole song from it, from that creating a genre. So they're taking this piece of him and just running with that. So that's their little piece. Somebody else may come along and feel like, okay, they didn't take his moves, but they took his message, you know. So until there's someone that actually will combine the two, there won't be another Michael. And right now, there's really nobody doing that.
Okay. I know there was a report or something I saw or read where they said that they feel like out of all the male artists out there who, the closest one that resembled Michael Jackson is Chris Brown in the sense of how he moved and stuff. And I remember recently, he did the Michael Jackson tribute, which was the best tribute I've seen so far,
Mm.
for Michael.
Okay.
So I understand how you're saying. But is there a point to where artists just can't evolve any longer, or
Um.
will they reach that plateau where it just seems like they really just can't go any higher?
Yeah, there comes a point in time for those artists. Those kind of are your one-hit wonders. They come out with that one song, and when they come out with that one song that's just so wonderfully hot, you know, every time they do something, it's got to be up to that caliber. And if they can't reach that quality or that caliber, is unless they just have a diehard fan base, they're not going to survive. And that's kind of why those types of artists fizzle out because they were able to discover this one great piece of music at the right time, um, that put them on top, and then trying to recreate that moment, struggle the rest of the time. Um, so yeah.
Okay, and my final question: what do you feel an artist truly needs to be able to evolve to the next level in music?
Um, Evolving in the next, it's just continuing to be good at what you do. People, artists that are around a long time, they just don't roll out of bed and are just perfect. It takes work to be what you are, whether it's a dancer, a singer, a writer, a musician, whatever. It takes time, practice. Um, there's a lot of practice, studying. Not necessarily you have to play all the time, but just being aware of what's around you, being aware of the trends, but at the same time staying true to yourself, learning your spirit. That's what the music industry is about as well, being unique. There's a bunch of people out there that can sing. There are a bunch of people out there that can play. There are a bunch of people out there that can dance. But what about you makes you different from that other singer, that other musician, that other, dancer? You know, you may be good as Miles Davis, but what's going to distinguish you from Miles Davis as a trumpet player? You can play the same things he can. Okay, great. That means you're good, but what's going to make you separate from him? Same way with dancers and singers and all that kind of stuff. You can look at these different artists, Beyonce or Adana Ross, Jill Scott, Erica Badu. They all have something unique about themselves because they're all singers. They all can sing, but what makes Jill separate from Erica? What makes Erica separate from a Beyonce? What makes a Beyonce separate from a Lauryn Hill? And if you can find that and stick with that and craft that and hone in on it and craft it and develop it, then you will definitely survive because it's about being unique. Because if you're just like everything else, you'll just be washed away with everything else and not around.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for your interview.
No problem.
I am Justin Chandler. This is Larissa, and thank you.